I'm Allison, and this is Learning Literature. If you have any requests for writing topics you'd like help with, please put them in the comments. Today, I'll be talking about everyone's favorite essay assignment, the 5-paragraph essay. I'm assuming you're familiar with it, probably from an English class or a different humanities subject. Today, I'll be explaining the process I recommend for writing a 5-paragraph essay. At the end, if you want more details, I have another video where I run through an example. To start your 5-paragraph essay, you want to do some brainstorming and developing an outline. Okay, don't click away. I know that a lot of you don't do this step. You think that it's not important or it's a waste of time, it doesn't suit you, you never bother with it. I understand all of that. Let me try to persuade you that it actually is helpful and will make the process easier for you and will make the product better in the end. Here are the reasons that I recommend taking the time to do a brainstorm and outline. The first is that it breaks the entire process into small pieces. It can feel really daunting to sit down at a blank screen and just write a 5-paragraph essay. By breaking it down into an outline, you'll never feel overwhelmed. At every stage, you're only working on a small task, maybe developing your thesis or brainstorming some evidence, and that way each task feels very manageable. You can see progress as you proceed, and in the end, the entire process was very smooth. Brainstorming and outlining also reminds you to stay connected to the text. Sometimes people have a tendency to just sit down and write, and they can get very distracted and pulled away from the actual material they're supposed to be analyzing. They get an idea in their heads about what the essay should be, they start filling out paragraphs, and they're not looking back anymore at the novel or other piece that they're supposed to be analyzing. By pausing at the beginning and taking your time to do a lot of brainstorming and organizing, then you know all of your essay is grounded very firmly in the text that you're analyzing. It's a much more inductive way of writing an essay. Instead of just sitting down and writing what you think, you're using the text as your jumping off point, making sure that all of your ideas are directly tied to the material that you're analyzing. It also helps you to work through ideas at an early stage before you've devoted a lot of work into writing an entire rough draft. If it turns out that your organizational plan doesn't work or the ideas that you've grouped together don't really have that much in common, it's really frustrating to find that out at the end after you've written an entire essay. And at that point, a lot of people refuse to make the changes that are necessary. They just let themselves be pulled off track. If you find those mistakes early in the brainstorm and outline stage, it's easy to make the corrections, and then you can be sure in the end that your entire essay's structure fits together very clearly. Brainstorming and outlining is sort of like getting details about directions to a place that you're going. If you don't do them, you can maybe get there with some very broad directions, like head south on the highway and take exit 10. Maybe you'll get to the place you're going, but it's likely you'll have problems along the way. You might accidentally be stuck in an exit-only lane, or you'll turn the wrong way off at exit 10. By getting some more information ahead of time, by filling in a lot of the details, you make sure that the drive is smooth, you get there as quickly as you can, and you didn't need to get stressed at any moment. That's what brainstorming and outlining provides you. It fills in the details between that blank screen and the 5-paragraph essay. And it does it in a way that should make the process smooth and somewhat painless along the way. So, assuming that you're ready to brainstorm and outline, what does it actually involve? I'm assuming there's some sort of a basic topic that you have as the assignment. I suggest starting with a tentative thesis that you might use for your essay. You're not committed to anything at this point, and you certainly don't need to write it in a smooth, beautiful way. I think that you need a goal. The thesis is going to be the claim that you are defending in your essay. It's what all of the evidence is working towards. It's the goal of your paper. So you need to have that established pretty early on. It's very tentative at this stage. You're welcome to change it later if that's where the evidence leads you. But before you start brainstorming, you want to know what you're brainstorming about. I think having a thesis in mind can help to focus your brainstorming to see if the evidence really works to support this claim. So develop a very tentative thesis. The writing definitely does not need to be good at this point, and the content can change, but tentatively, this is the claim you'll be defending throughout the paper. Once you have your thesis, start brainstorming supporting examples. If you're writing an English paper, it's likely that these will be key plot points or moments of character development. Perhaps there were important dialogue lines that you remember to include. The content that you're looking for is anything in the story that supports the basic claim that your thesis is offering. And you want to basically just dump ideas onto paper at this point. They don't need any structure, they don't need to be good. You just want anything that you think will connect to your thesis. Then you want to go through those examples and start to evaluate and organize them. Do any of them fit together in a way that suggests that they're proving the same point, so they would work well in a supporting paragraph together? Do any of them stand out as not supporting your thesis or not fitting in with other supporting examples? Maybe you just want to delete those and not use them. The hope at this point is that you can start to have clarity about the content in your 3 supporting paragraphs. Group together your supporting examples with the plan of finishing with 3 supporting paragraphs, each with 2 or 3 supporting examples in them. Once you've done that, then you have a clear structure developing to defend your thesis. For each of your supporting paragraphs, work to write a topic sentence. Think about what this supporting paragraph is saying. How is it different from the other supporting paragraphs? What is the main claim that this supporting paragraph is making? Put that into the topic sentence so that each supporting paragraph has its own topic sentence. And then you want to check in on your thesis. You're looking for 2 things at this point. You want to make sure that every idea you introduce in your thesis is actually supported by your supporting paragraphs. And you want to make sure that every idea in your supporting paragraphs actually connects to something in your thesis. This is the moment to be sure that your thesis and your supporting paragraphs have a really tight fit. Everything needs to be integrated. You should feel free at this point to change your thesis. If you started brainstorming and collecting evidence and it took you in a different direction, that's fine. Write a different thesis. Make sure in the end that your thesis and your supporting evidence fits together. And if that means at this point your supporting evidence is great, you just need to change your thesis, that's no problem. You were never committed to it anyway. It was always a tentative thesis. Just be sure in the end that any claim you make in your thesis is actually supported by your supporting paragraphs. And any content you provide in your supporting paragraphs is there for a reason, that it's clearly relating back to something in your thesis. At this point, you can be confident that your thesis is solid, it's not going to change significantly, and your supporting paragraphs are well structured and have good evidence in them. That makes this a good time to go back to the text and look for quotes to use as supporting evidence. These quotes will fit into each supporting paragraph using 1 or 2 quotes for each supporting example that you've provided. Finding and using quotes can be difficult. I have a video that I hope will provide some good information about how to do it. But as a basic principle, you want to look for quotes that directly say what it is you're claiming is happening in the story. Whatever your supporting evidence is about the characters or the plot, whatever claim you're making in this supporting paragraph, look for a quote where the story itself is making your claim. That way the story is providing its own evidence, and you merely need to say, see, there it is, the story says it, so it's certainly true. Let the story support the claim for you. Let the language of the story be the evidence. You don't want to select a plot summary here. Instead, you want actual lines from the text that make the claim you're trying to make in each supporting paragraph. Okay, if you've done this, you should have a clear outline with a lot of good information in it. And that makes the next stage, writing the supporting paragraphs, pretty easy. You already have a topic sentence, evidence selected, and quotes selected for that evidence. There's not much more to do to turn those into paragraphs. Each of your quotes will need a sentence or two analyzing it, demonstrating how it works to support your claim. But other than that, these paragraphs are largely already written. And that's one of the great advantages of taking your time to write a good outline. It makes the actual writing of the essay much easier. Once you write your supporting paragraphs, I recommend that you go back and work on the language of your thesis. You should have a clear picture of how the evidence is working at this point to defend your thesis. So it's not a matter of changing the content of your thesis, it's just a matter of changing the language, making sure that the ideas are expressed as clearly as you can. Clarity is always a top concern when writing. Flowery language, sophisticated word choices are fine if you're confident in how you're using them, but the clarity of ideas is a top consideration. And now that you're up to the revision stage, you want to have an eye towards clarity. Is your thesis making the claim as clearly as you possibly can? Once you've revised your thesis, revise your supporting paragraphs for the same purpose. Focusing on clarity, are you explaining these ideas as well as you can? Are the topic sentences clear? Does the evidence work to directly demonstrate those topic sentences? Is your analysis of the quotes written as clearly as it can be? You'll notice at this point, I've spent the entire time talking about your thesis statement and the supporting evidence, and I've not mentioned at all the introduction and conclusion. It's not a coincidence. I think they're much less important than the other content. The primary point of a 5-paragraph essay is to defend an argument. You need a clear claim, that's your thesis statement, and you need compelling evidence to support that claim. That's what those 3 supporting paragraphs are doing. So the full force of this 5-paragraph essay is contained in the argument that you make, your thesis statement and supporting paragraphs. The introduction and conclusion are much less important, so write them at the end and focus perhaps on connecting your argument to broader issues perhaps in literature or in the world, if you have such a connection in mind. Perhaps leave the reader with more ideas and other possibilities to consider within the text on this issue that you've introduced in your 5-paragraph essay. But focus less on the introduction and the conclusion. They are framing the content that you're providing, but the real content is the argument, and that needs to be where your focus is. Once your essay is entirely written, go back and do some proofreading. This is a frustrating stage. It's tedious for everyone, but try to focus on improving your key mistakes. Maybe that's comma usage or changing verb tenses, and try to fix the glaring errors that would be distracting to any reader. I hope this was a helpful overview of how to write a 5-paragraph essay. If you use this method, I'm optimistic that you won't find the process too difficult, and you might be particularly proud of what you produce in the end. If you have any follow-up questions for how to use these strategies, just put them in the comments. And if you find any of these tips helpful, please press the like button.